I'm focused on his spirit cause it keeps me from his fire. The Holy Ghost was with me, so my fear I leave behind. My sins were all diminished when he took that breath and died. And if you think I'ma give up on my God, the devil is a lie. The devil is a lie. The devil is a lie.
Hello. Welcome back to News. I'm your host, Christina Barr, and today we're going to be talking about a comment that an Illinois Black representative said about Black Republicans, about them being insane, because he was reacting to the controversy with the Gavin Newsom story, which people on the right, and including my initial reaction to it, was not quite what it was. So we'll talk about that, though Gavin Newsom doesn't deserve fairness, but because it's good to be fair, that's what we're going to do. But he's still like a bad human being, and he said some crazy other stuff about voter ID and so on, and his insinuations. So I'm still going to rag on Gavin Newsom, but I want to be fair to him. But yeah, there's this belief that Republicans, you can't be a Black Republican, which Jasmine Crockett had said something also to the effect of people, Black people might be conservative in their backgrounds and their beliefs, but they don't want to join the Republican Party because they believe that they're the KKK, which is interesting if you know the background of the KKK. So we're going to be addressing that. Of course, we're gearing up for the State of the Union, and interesting things I'm sure will be happening tonight. Trump's guest list versus some of the guests that the Democrats are bringing in. And I also want to touch upon a bit about the documentary that Candace Owens is bringing about Erika Kirk, and just really, really obviously inappropriate, but I'm totally not surprised. Anyway, before we jump into everything, I want to encourage you guys to go to blacktunies.com, check out different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do here, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream. Run my site. I'll get those guys again support. I've managed to appreciate it and appreciate you guys. If you guys want to support in other ways, there's also different merch and stuff that you guys can get from the website, different, tees and hoodies and mugs and so on. So go ahead and pick up that stuff if you're interested. And shout out to my older sister, Katrina. It is her birthday, so she's dropping the big 4-0. So I'll be catching up pretty soon. We're 3 years apart, so happy birthday to Katrina. So let's start off with this segment with this Black Democrat talking about Black Republicans, and we shall go from there. But I'm not surprised about the sentiment at all. It's like one of the least surprising things, especially because I hear crazy racist stuff from white liberals, but especially Black Democrats. But here we go.
Blacks are like out of their mind. They're insane in so many levels. And I would say that absolutely. Anytime you have your civil rights.
Oops, sorry, that's not the beginning of the clip.
Well, this is like a hair trigger moment that's absolutely ridiculous. I think it's blown way out of proportion. If they want to talk about race and vulnerability, talk about.
But would you say that if it was a Republican?
Jobs. Yeah, I mean, well, Republican blacks are like out of their mind. They're insane in so many levels, and I would say that absolutely. Anytime you have your civil rights being attacked, your voting rights of 40,000 Black women that have lost their jobs, the disrespect to the Black community, and all these top-tier government officials, it's been a concerted attack on the African-American community. Well, this is like a...
Yeah, so a little background. So Gavin Newsom was at an event in Atlanta, and he was talking to a Black man on stage, and he said, a comment about, I got, I'm just like you. And he starts talking about how he only got a 960 on his SATs. And he said that he can't read, which, he can read, but he's dyslexic. So, he has different challenges with his reading, but Gavin Newsom. He's been going on this crusade to kind of appear like everyman, talking about how like his mom, some days he had to eat mac and cheese out of a box and his mom worked a lot, trying to really paint this, I don't know, just single mom broke experience, when this guy is very well off and went on safaris and party with Jack Nicholson and all kinds of different stuff. And not to say that he didn't have any kind of other struggles growing up, but what I really don't like, I don't like pandering like this. And maybe this is me, and you guys can let me know what you tend to think about this kind of stuff. I don't like to really be pandered to, and I definitely don't find value in people kind of dumbing down their success, or dumbing down their intelligence to try to relate to the population as a whole, or to me, or whatever. If you like, I wouldn't mind if you grew up totally rich and if your perspectives on life, your struggles aren't like mine. Like if you were never kicked out of your house like I was, that's fine. But as long as you can try to understand the positions and the experiences of other people that you want to seek to represent, that's okay. As long as you want to learn and you want to listen and you want to do some good for some people, that's fine. But I don't need you trying to, I don't know, pretend like you had it hard in those kinds of ways, like I had it hard. And there's a lot of people who are very well off now, who didn't grow up in the best of conditions, who can relate. But if you grew up with a silver spoon in your mouth, I really don't mind about the silver spoon. Now I know there's a lot of people who eat the rich and resent success, so I understand why people do it, but I just I don't like it. And I know there's all kinds of different ways that people can pander to their audience. Like people pander and be all like super religious. I don't want you to pander all super religious to me. I want you to be religious. Like if you're a Christian and that's part of your walk and your life and how you communicate and how you talk, and you really believe the things that I believe, that is cool. What I don't want you to do is run around with a Bible in your hand and pretend like you drop prayers all the time, and you're quoting all these kind of scriptures because you're trying to appeal to me, because people have it in their minds, because Jesus talked about people who would like pray in public and all this other kind of stuff, and in the Bible call out certain hypocrites or whatnot who are seeking attention. It's not wrong to pray in public or anything like that, but it is wrong. Like the Lord knows your heart. If you're doing it for attention, if you're telling people that you're going on a 40-day fast because you want them to be like, oh, you're so cool because you're doing all this stuff. It's not about you getting a big head about the things that you are doing that you're really supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be a living sacrifice, and that is your good and reasonable service. Like it's just like the bare minimum. Right? To be a living sacrifice is the bare minimum when you are a Christian. So if you're going around and this is your life, this is what you talk about, if you know me, I'm going to be talking about this stuff because it's near and dear to my heart. I don't just get in front of you guys and talk about the stuff, which, I guess you wouldn't 100% know, but I don't just say, hey, I'm on Friday, I got to go to church, signing off. I'm actually in church on Friday and Sunday and Wednesday and Saturday when we have first of the month women's Bible study. and different other religious events that we might pop up on the schedule. I'm in church a lot. I'm when I'm not in church, a lot of times my free time, I'm listening to Bible commentaries or podcasts or things like that. Maybe God Logic, maybe Ruslan, maybe Wes Huff, maybe maybe Inspiring Philosophy, maybe gosh, what's his name? Biblical thinker. His name is escaping me. He wears glasses and he does questions of the day and did a huge report on women and the Bible, and Mike Winger. There we go. Mike Winger, or just somebody like that, and I might not agree with everybody's take on different stuff, but I find it interesting. That's just kind of stuff I like. Like I've seen a lot of content from Nabil Qureshi and Dave Wood. And, that's what I'm into. But what's in you is going to come out of you. So, if that's naturally really who you are, I don't begrudge politicians who are going out there saying a bunch of Jesus stuff. But sometimes you see the pandering really go down. And I don't want you to pander to me. I want you to be authentic. And I know that's very hard in this business for people. It really shouldn't be hard in this business. But that's just how it is. When it comes to politicians, a lot of people don't, they really need to package themselves. So they do package themselves. And, they're always trying to figure out what relationship, whether certain people are worth dealing with, so they can use their relationship to get to the next level. There's very few sincere friendships that you may find in this business and in this industry, or maybe it's the case that maybe you may find more sincere friendships behind the scenes, and people don't sincerely believe what they espouse because it's for money. Like people do that in the podcast space. They'll say stuff to appeal to their different audiences as different influencers, but there's also like different staffers who are really cool with each other across the political aisle, and they don't, they're not as aggressive on some of the things that they actually push, or when people pretend that they really hate each other and Republicans or Democrats are a threat to democracy. That's what they say. That's what they help their bosses push, but they hang out and have barbecues together on the weekend. So it's a lot of it is a giant act. I really don't like the fakery when it comes to politics. I don't love it. So I don't love Gavin Newsom really doing this pandering bit. To me, he comes off as really slimy one way or another, that he constantly lies. I don't understand why anyone would take him seriously, why people can't see through his snake oil salesman routine. To me, he totally seems like someone who would rig a kids karate tournament. And that's a reference to Terry Silver if you watch the Karate Kid movies, or really the Cobra Kai show. That's what Gavin Newsom, he gives me those kinds of heebie-jeebies. I absolutely do not believe a single thing that he says. But when he was talking about the 960 SAT and the I can't read, was he saying that to appeal to a room of Black people? Well, in Wokeness, which is a big account on X, I think they're the ones who are pushing that. They're like, he's in Georgia saying this to a Black crowd, and from different images that I've seen, it didn't look like a Black crowd. I don't know if Gavin knew that it wasn't a Black crowd, but it might have just really been him trying to appeal as an everyday man, and not specifically to Black voters. So I want to put that out there. Now it's funny because Sean Hannity did like call him out on that, and he went off on Sean and was like, spare me, you guys are justifying Trump and that monkey Obama image, and don't talk about me for being racist because I'm talking about my dyslexia. And so I don't appreciate him and people really still trying to push, and prior even to that situation, the whole Trump being racist. I've explained how that happened. I definitely don't believe that Trump was screen recording a reel, period. I heavily criticized him and his team for sharing something and not watching it, but I believe that they probably just shared it because of the beginning portion with the voter fraud story, and didn't intend to share the rest of it, at least on Trump's part. But whoever is running his social media stuff or actually post stuff, they just need to be careful about how they go about how they post stuff anyway. And my true feelings is really, if he had something negative to say about Obama, he would just kind of say it with his full chest and not feel the need to really do something that's sneaky. If he really wanted to say something awful about Obama. So Gavin Newsom, he's a very slimy guy, but in that particular instance, was he trying to really pander, I guess, specifically to Black people by playing down his intelligence? Maybe not specifically to the Black crowd and because it didn't look like it really was a black crowd, or could it have been to the black person he was talking to. Well, they didn't seem to take offense to that sort of thing. That doesn't mean just because some people don't take offense that what he said wasn't offensive, but it just seemed to kind of be overblown. Now, this conversation, though, on CNN, when the host asked this Democrat, okay, well, would you be saying the same thing if it were like black Republicans? And, you know, if this was, he was talking to like a Republican on stage about this stuff. And instead of being honest, because I think if there was a situation like this at all, where it seemed like there was let's say it was a white Republican on stage talking to a black Republican host or something, and they said something that could be misconstrued as something racial, do you think all these black Democrats and politicians would be like, oh, you guys are misunderstanding it, they didn't mean it that way, they didn't mean it to be racist, blah blah blah? Do you think they would do that? No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. So then he just kind of, instead of like admitting that, or kind of just outright kind of denying it, he went into black Republicans are crazy. And he mentioned a couple things, and he talked about the civil rights. They're crazy because our civil rights are being attacked. What do they mean by that? Our civil rights are being attacked. The Voting Act, the SAVE Act, is that what it is? Because people are still going on about the stupid thing. And again, I think there are reasonable concerns that people could debate about, and by the way, address and fix if they want to make the bill better. But people who keep insisting that it is so impossible for people to get IDs or birth certificates or passports, which you don't need a passport if you have a birth certificate. Your passport is sufficient because you've identified yourself as an American citizen if you have one, or at least some kind of legal resident or something. There's different reasons why you may have a passport, but it's just really bizarre. So Gavin Newsom is still on this crusade about the SAVE Act and the birth certificates, and he's not the only one. Bernie Sanders the other day had said, he didn't know his passport, doesn't know how to get another one, which is absurd, absolutely absurd. And you had Gavin Newsom also talk about how he, didn't know he lost his at 7 years old. That was another dumb thing that he said. But he continues to talk about the SAVE Act to say it's about who can vote.
This SAVE Act and what he's trying to do, very familiar here in South Carolina.
Yes.
It's not just about ID, it's about registration and who should vote, who can vote. This is happening on our watch in real time in the United States of America 2026. For things to change, we need to change. So my approach changed. That switch came off. It was a bright light, not darkness. This SAVE.
Okay. All right. I wish he'd go back to kids karate. The SAVE Act. Oh, it's about who can vote. Of course it's about who can vote. It's one of the stupidest criticisms I've heard. It's about who can vote. Of course it is. Of course it is. It's about trying to stop non-citizens from voting. And you can say, Christina, well, it's not a big deal. Like, it's not some kind of epidemic of non-citizens voting. Okay, but they can. And they have. Like, it's not enough to change the results of election, and we don't want it to get to the point where it could be enough to change the results of an election. And by the way, it's for the people voting for president. Those aren't the only kinds of elections that there are. I lost a primary by 6 votes. A couple of votes can make the difference. 1 vote can make a difference. 2 votes can make a difference. You think the Chinese national who voted in the Ann Arbor election, like that, was that fair to the people of Ann Arbor voting in their local stuff? Was that fair? Whatever school board district he voted on or whatever. It certainly wasn't fair to me when he voted for president. Now he could have voted for Trump. Voted for the same person I did. It still doesn't matter. He shouldn't have been able to do it. So we could say, yes, our system has been very good as far as filtering out and stopping massive fraud, which people would, I guess, push back on me in some regard when I say that. But we definitely don't want people to be able to abuse it more. Like if we found a flaw and we want to shore up our elections, that why is that such an issue? Why is it such an issue? I mean, I really think it's more about complaints about the voter rolls being constantly updated to make sure that they're filtering out people who are ineligible. I mean, I really think that's probably the real concern for a lot of these people who are pretending that it's about a birth certificate. But I don't appreciate how stupid these people sound and how like proud they are to be stupid. The insincerity, I talked about the insincerity. I hate that so much. And it's just so obvious. It's about who can vote. Yes, it sure is. Absolutely. Duh. Why would you want non-citizens to vote, Gavin Newsom? It's about who can vote. Yes. I don't want non-citizens to vote. Again, when I got my driver's license, well, no, before I got a state ID before I got my driver's license, I provided my birth certificate so I could identify myself. I brought my birth certificate. I had my social security card. And my mom used to keep like my social security card. And when I was in high school, the school was like writing out a check or something because we had an art show. And I needed my like social security number or something like that. And I didn't know. My mom had the card from my card because she was keeping all my records and stuff. And I'm like, Mom, I need this number or whatever. And she said, you need to remember it. you you need to know this off the top of your head. You shouldn't need to look at a paper to know your social security number. You need to remember it. So I committed it to memory because it's an important thing. And eventually I was like, Mom, can I have my card? So she gave me my card. I've kept it safe all this time. And my birth certificate was still with her. I would go get it in moments when I needed it, and then I would bring it back and she'd put it in her safe or whatever, in her safekeeping. And it was in her safekeeping until she passed away, and then my dad lost him. And then I went and I got a new one very easily. It's just not hard. All these people make me sick. They really do. Now the Democrat also mentioned job loss, and Democrats are using a talking point about Black women leaving the job market, but they are cherry picking particular statistics. And then there's some Black women who are leaving the workforce versus like quote unquote losing their jobs. Like, I know a mom who left the workforce to be a stay-at-home mom, as of late, you got to consider those kinds of things. There are a lot of Black women who've been in these really woke positions, a lot of white women too, but that are the companies aren't into anymore. There was some government jobs that ended up getting cut that would end up impacting some Black women too. But if the government is in debt, which it is, and we could cut some jobs to save some money, the purpose of Doge, I think it's sad when people do lose their job. But at the same time, that is what happens in the private sector when companies aren't making enough money. sometimes they do let people go. It's just a reality. And just because you work for the government doesn't mean that you are guaranteed a job for life, especially when they only make money by confiscating money from other people. So I would like to see him justify all those numbers that he was kind of quoting. But the civil rights stuff, it's it's just ignorance on display. It's fear mongering on display, and that's what they do play on. Um, you being a black person, that you should have a particular identity, and we're going to fear monger you until you comply. I've told the story before, but I shall tell it again. Some years ago, I went to a Democrat Party picnic. And I went to like film stuff because I was paid to film stuff. Like because the governor was going to be there, so I was tracking, is what it's called. They pay me a nice money for an afternoon. And so it might have been like $200 or something like that. But anyway, I went to go track the event, and nobody knew that I was a Republican, you know, and I just had kind of general conversations about who I was in my life. I didn't tell a single lie, you know, and when they it was like in the midst of the pandemic, but not like in the beginning of it. So this is like after everyone's vaccinated, and someone remarked like, nobody's really wearing masks, and like, I hope everyone is vaccinated. And I'm just like, you would think. You would think. And so that was like my response to that. But sometimes they said some things that I was just kind of like, huh. But they seem to be, nice people who cared about themselves, their families, their communities, and so on. But they did say some things that were troubling here or there, like Trump doesn't care about anyone. He doesn't care about anyone. And in my mind, I'm just like, he doesn't care about his kids, his wife, like his friends, especially the loyal ones. He doesn't care about people at all. Like, he's just this giant mass of evil, 6'3" massive evil walking around plaguing the earth. And so that was, but they would say that stuff about Republicans too, like that they just didn't believe that Republicans or Trump or whatever cared about people at all, which was like, how do you really meet middle ground with people who think that their side is just evil, I guess. I think the other side, they support some evil things, and there are individuals who might be evil. But if you just believe like the whole kind of blanket party is just evil, and sometimes they really want to impugn Trump. Not that Trump is like a perfect person and isn't someone that we could criticize and hasn't done some things that are questionable, even in what I would deem to be immoral. But a lot of times the reasons why they attack his character so much is because they want to impugn everyone else who has voted for him, even though we all recognize that you get basically two choices. I mean, you could abstain and vote for a third party or whatever, but in reality, either the Republican or the Democrat is winning, and you can make a choice to pick between which one is going to serve the country best in the circumstance. And you may not, you're electing someone to represent you, but that doesn't mean that they all the way represent everything that you believe in. The only way you're going to be able to really push what you 100% believe in is if you become involved in politics yourself. But even when you do that, there's going to be instances when you have to compromise if you want to get something done, and it's just the reality of the situation. I got a chat, or is that a sticker? Love from the South of Georgia. I think that was what it says. Oh, thank you very much. Whoever, whatever. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah. So anyway, I'm having these conversations with all these people, and the governor shows up, the attorney general shows up. I'm in Michigan, by the way. So this Gretchen Whitmer, Dana Nessel, Jocelyn Benson is running for governor right now, but she's Secretary of State. And by the way, if you're from Michigan, Secretary of State, like we say it strange, like, I didn't realize that there's this guy who mocks Michigan accents on TikTok. I'm like, oh my gosh, because we don't say Secretary of State. It's like Secretary. It's just all like one word when we say it. So if you're from Michigan and you haven't heard that, just maybe blew your mind. But we don't separate those words when we talk about it. It's just a bit of our Michigan accent. And then a Supreme Court justice was there, Bernstein, and Bernstein was like, I love being a Democrat because we care about people. We actually care about people. And I was floored by that. And so I did record that, and I did try to send it to some people in the Republican Party, but they never really did anything with it. I'm like, this seems like a really big deal to me, because I've been to a lot of different events with different judges and even even like the Michigan Supreme Court justices too, who are conservative, but I've never heard someone say something so partisan before about their opponents and stuff. Excuse me. And then he said that lived experience was what was kind of most important to him as a judge. And I'm like, not the law? Like, not the law? The law wasn't the most important. So what she was saying, some stuff that was wild. Dana Nessa was bragging about, suing Trump. Jocelyn Benson was bragging about all of the same day voters who were teenagers voting in the election for the first time. And I'm that sort of thing gives me the heebie-jeebies, not because they didn't have the right to vote, but I really don't believe you should do same day registration and voting. But especially because I'm like, okay, if you waited all this time to register to vote, how informed are you about your decision? I'm not happy just because people voted. I don't feel that's a win. I want people to be informed about the decisions that they make and have some kind of skin in the game. Like, if your buddy's like, you got to vote for this, you got to do it, and then you go register. I don't see a real benefit in someone on a college campus registering to vote on election day. I just don't see how that is a good thing for anyone other than the people who had the benefit of herding them in like sheep. Okay. But eventually they start talking about school board meetings, and because Republicans really had like some momentum, especially with the CRT, critical race theory stuff. And I was really studying this at the time and writing about it at the time and doing a lot of shows about it at the time. And so I decided to pull the chair of the party aside and started having a conversation with her. And I'm like, are Democrats really going to keep pushing this critical race theory stuff? Because it seems like a real losing issue. And so, I'm like, I don't know how much you know about it. And she's like, I don't know much about it. And so I start trying to like explain stuff to her. And then she just, gets kind of frustrated. She's just like, it's just about racism. It's just about racism. And I'm like, no, like critical race theory is what is actually racist. And she's like, I've seen these people, they're like foam at these meetings and they're foaming at the mouth and they're racist. And I'm just thinking, like, foaming at the mouth? Like, what? Like, I've been to those meetings myself. I mean, she didn't know that I had been to those meetings. And most of these people were just very concerned parents who didn't want this particular curriculums teaching twisted history, teaching that their kids are the enemy because of their skin color, or people who are Black who didn't want their children being taught that they are victims because of their skin color, and or taught to hate the country, or just all sorts of different things. They didn't like it. They didn't like the Marxism kind of background associated with it, and so on. So, I didn't appreciate her telling me, because I'm the only one who's admitted to knowing anything about this topic, and she tries to shut me down by like appealing to my opposite are racist. Even if that were the case, even if it were the case that racists do oppose critical race theory, that doesn't mean their concerns about it were wrong. And it certainly doesn't mean that my concerns about it are incorrect. But she couldn't possibly know or have a true valid opinion on it because she didn't know anything about it, which she, again, admitted to me. And so she ended the conversation with like, well, we're looking for people to run for school board. Would you like to run for school board? And I took her card. Of course, I didn't decide to run for the Democrat school board, but I did write about my experience and talk about my experience. And I sent off my footage of Gretchen Whitmer and got my $200 for the day. But it was bizarre. So anyway, they do use race a lot. And this was a white woman, by the way, who pulled that card. It wasn't a black woman. But they try to manipulate people by their race. And when you have conversations about, like, I was talking to that opinionated girl, she's on TikTok and Instagram and stuff, and I was explaining that the more religious you, like, the more you go to church, if you're a white person, the more likely you are to vote right wing. I said that's not the case like in the black church. Even like if you go to church more, they're just really dead set on voting Democrat for whatever reason. And I said, there's this image in their minds, like, even if they are more conservative, because I've seen black people talk about how they don't like abortion, but they still complain, or like there's this video that I've shown a couple times of a preacher in Georgia complaining about Herschel Walker and Trump and stuff, and then went into a rant about, people trying to push gay marriage and abortion and things like that. And it was like all within the same time span. It wasn't like a jump in his sermon. I'm like, okay, if you don't like these things, why and there were plenty of problems with Herschel Walker, and I understand people ultimately not wanting to support him, even people on the right, but why Warnock? Like, Warnock is supporting these things that you don't support, and helping to push these things that you don't support. So why aren't you just thinking a little bit more deeply about these things? But there's been this really, really, I guess, flawless execution from the left and Democrats for a long time that has married the idea of blackness to being a Democrat. And when it comes to the black community, being black is seen as being central to your identity. And there was Pew Research done, and it was like 85% of black people see being black as being part of their identity, as opposed to like white people, it was like 15%. So there's just kind of a different way of thinking. So, evangelicals who continuously keep going to church, who are pretty dedicated to, religion, they'll let their politics influence their vote. Where a lot of black people will not like stuff, but they are so gung-ho about uniformly voting Democrat. And they may complain about Democrats. Like you see Charlemagne, for example, on the Breakfast Club complain all day about, sometimes he'll complain about Democrats. He definitely doesn't like a lot of Republicans and stuff, but he'll complain about Democrats. When people try to accuse him of being a Democrat, he'll claim he's an independent. It's like, okay, but when have you not voted for these people? And he does really, really defend them a lot. So there might be a lot of Democrats, people who claim to be independent, but still will uniformly still go out there at the end of the day, and they're going to vote for the Democrat. So I don't like all of the identity politics stuff. I get a lot of hate from people who say that I am a coon. Show me, send pictures of raccoons, of Steven from Django, even though he would have been a Republican. But call me an Uncle Tom or Auntie Tom, even though Uncle Tom was the hero of that story, and Uncle Tom's Cabin literally helped to end the slave trade in the United States. But yeah, call black people you don't like Uncle Tom's, okay? It's really so stupid. But yeah, they try to really erase your blackness, and they'll say all skin folk ain't kinfolk, and comments like that if you don't vote the particular way that they say that you're supposed to vote. And I was thinking about this. I'm like, okay, well, let's say I decided to just not be a Republican anymore. Let's say I just start going to Democrat meetings, and then they say stuff like, okay, we're going to abolish ICE. I'd be like, wait a second. I don't want to abolish ICE. Like, I don't believe it's right to jump the line. It's not right. I really want to make sure that people who are immigrating into this country are doing it the right way. not jumping the line, but I want like background checks on these people. I want to make sure that they haven't done like heinous things when they left their country. I want to make sure that they're here on their best behavior. And if they do something that's a crime or whatever, that they're going to leave. I just think that it's a good thing that to have where there's border patrol or ICE agents that are going to come and try to enforce our laws, because these people really should respect our laws. And again, we should know who's coming in here and have some control over that. Now, do they do everything right? Are there law enforcement officers who sometimes do a piss poor job? Sure. And they should be dealt with legally, maybe fired from their job. Sometimes people even arrested and go to jail for, acting inappropriately. I'm cool with accountability, but as far as like abolishing ICE, I'm not for that. And if they're like, oh, well, what about a woman's right to choose? I'm like, wait a second. I can't support a woman's right to choose because you guys are not talking about like the right to whether, I don't know, she's going to paint her nails or get her ears pierced or something like that. You're talking about whether or not she could take the life of her offspring. And I just don't believe in supporting her right to commit homicide, like premeditated homicide. That sounds insane to me. But just because her child needs her, that sounds absurd. Like, I've always been a person. I'm a person today. I was a person yesterday. I'll be a person tomorrow. By the way, I was a person in the womb who was deserving of the right to life, the right to be protected. So I just can't hop on that train with you. I think abortion is not only murder, but obviously a very evil thing. So just because you call it a woman's right to choose, or you would have call it healthcare, doesn't mean that those things are true. And if they're like, well, we want to do universal healthcare, I'm like, wait a second, I've heard about universal healthcare in other countries, like in Canada, for example. I just don't think that that's gonna work out. I think our quality is gonna go down a lot. if we do that. We can have really long waiting times for things like MRIs, or even the idea that you don't have to pay for anything. I don't even think that's true, because I've heard stories about doctors who have suggested to patients that they are euthanized so they don't have to pay for their hospital expenses. So I just don't think that's the best way. I'm not saying our system is perfect, but in other countries where they might have like a bunch of social benefits, they have they tax everyone, and we have a system that taxes pretty wealthy people disproportionately compared to everybody else. So I just don't think that we could sustain that, and the people would enjoy what it would take to have to be able to sustain something like that. And I still don't think that we probably get good quality. And there's other mechanisms we could use to improve the system, but not universal healthcare, especially since that would destroy the private market, which is the aim of people like Bernie Sanders and AOC. And I think that's insane. There's people who get health insurance through their employer and really like it and wouldn't want to lose something like that. So yeah, I can't support that. And if they're like, well, what, we've got to protect the trans kids, the kids who are in women's sports, and if they want to go to the locker rooms and pee wherever they want to, I'd be like, wait a second, I can't support that. I very much care about my right to privacy, and I feel very uncomfortable with a man in my locker room, in my bathroom, in a Korean spa where people get naked. Like I just don't appreciate and approve of something like that. And when it comes to sports, like if it's just a barbecue or something, and it's women against men or something, we're going to lose. But that's something that we can agree to. But if we're talking about high school sports, or just anything like that, where it's going to lead to people getting different scholarships and opportunities and winning awards and so on, it's just really not fair for a boy to be on a girl's team. And there's a reason why we separate it by sex. It's not about how you feel. So yeah, I can't really support those sorts of things. And the more they would continue talking, we would continue to see disagreement, and eventually they would say, like, why are you here? And I was saying, because I was told that Black people can't be Republicans, so I must be a Democrat. And they'd say, no, baby, you sound like a Republican. And I would say, you know what? That's because I am. You can't just try to put me in a box because of my skin color. I'm not saying that I don't have particular lived experiences as a Black woman that I wouldn't particularly have if I was a different race. People sometimes ask me, like, why are you called black tea? Why are you called black tea? Why are you making it about race? And well, it is from my perspective as a black Republican, a black conservative. And I do have one from that particular angle. And people have noticed that I'm black. People notice. And I definitely am treated a particular way by the left because I am a black Republican, because I'm a black conservative. Absolutely. I just went over how I'm called racist things all the time. But I also have a perspective as a black Republican from the right sometimes too. Like, for example, someone messaged me on TikTok and they said, I really appreciate you speaking out for Charlie Kirk, because if I spoke out, they would call me racist. And I know their heart was supposed to be in the right place when they said that, but I'm like, okay, so you get to not say anything and be silent so you avoid being called a racist, but I'm out there being called a coon to be your shield. No, I'm saying what I'm saying about particular topics because they're my feelings and it's what I want to talk about. But my goal isn't to be everyone's shield and sword. I'm like, I very much appreciate it when people message me and say I'm inspired to be more vocal and fight beside you. I don't my goal isn't to be a token, I suppose. So and I know they didn't mean it at all in any kind of disrespectful way. But the reality is that I've been called a lot of racial things, or a lot of racial slurs, specifically because of my defense of Charlie Kirk. Specifically because of that. I got a lot of hate because of my election night video when I celebrated with my sisters after Trump won. I got a lot of hate, man. But I've gotten a lot of hateful comments for defending Charlie Kirk and correcting a lot of misinformation. Or there was that Cinnabon lady who called a Somali person the N-word and other things, cursed her out and said a bunch of different stuff, and threatened violence, I think, too. And so I said, yeah, this woman should have been fired from her job. Like, I don't care how bad you think that the situation with the immigrant population coming in and taking over Minnesota or other places are. Like, if you work for a company like Cinnabon, you can't just be on camera calling people all these kinds of different words and not expect that a company to take action in order to preserve their image, because you are a reflection of that company. So I'm like, of course it's a good thing that they fire that person. And I had a few comments that were like, well, you're saying this because you're black. No, like, this is a legitimate opinion. And like, you're upset because she said the N-word. I'm like, I'm not that offended by it. That's like, I don't like people cursing and all that kind of stuff on the job either. Like, the whole behavior was offensive. It's not just because she used the N-word. Even though if that was just what they used, it would still be fine for Cinnabon to fire them. But people to believe that I have that opinion because I'm black, it's very unfortunate. When I covered a story about that Myers employee who got fired, he was a white 19-year-old, I think, at the time, and was stealing food, like soft drink, like fountain drinks and fruit cups and things like that. And eventually Myers found out, and they did an investigation, lasted about 5 days or something, and then they let him go. And there's a lot of people on the right who are like pro Trump accounts, America First type accounts, who were pushing the story and trying to make it seem like Myers was a villain. And I had to look into it and correct a lot of misinformation because they were saying he's an autistic kid who was stealing food out of the garbage or whatever. And so as I was correcting the story, some people were challenging me and they're like, well, you wouldn't be covering this story if he were black. I'm like, okay, you definitely don't know who I am, because I've covered a lot of stories of people who are Black doing crazy things, and rebuking people who, for example, defending the kid who the Black kid who stabbed that twin at the school for reasons I don't understand. I've talked a lot about people who are Black who committed heinous crimes. I'm not just correcting a story about a grocery store that I shop at, by the way. Myers is in the Midwest, but it's a Michigan based company. Like I don't know Peter Meyer well, but I've met him. I'm like, these are real life people with real life jobs at a real life grocery store that I shop at and support. It seems reasonable that I wouldn't want lies to take it down. But people are like, you think this way because you're Black. So when people ask, like, why my Black Sea News, I do have a perspective as a Black Republican. I do. And people cannot like that. And people can say, hey, I don't see color. You definitely noticed. I appreciate that you don't want to treat me different because I'm Black. I appreciate that. But that just because you don't doesn't mean other people don't. That's just the truth. I definitely get more hate, obviously way more hate from the left, and ignorant comments and stuff from the left. Absolutely. But I do have a quote unquote lived experience as a Black conservative. I just do. Anyway, let me try to look through some of your comments, because I see there's quite a few. I don't know if you guys are talking with each other, or responding. Someone said she should have been fired. Talking about the Cinnamon girl. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, I am very much a Black conservative. I don't always agree with the direction of particular politicians, and not all of them are conservative. They're definitely not conservative enough for me. Trump's not conservative enough for me, but it is the reality that he is the Republican president, or just the president right now. What I find interesting is when people get upset, they're like, why? I just don't understand, as a Black woman, how you can support Trump. And I'm like, as opposed to what? I guess is the question. Like, he is the president. He's not running for office again. He's termed out. He's a lame duck. Okay. He is the president. People can pass bills. He signs them. They become law. He controls the executive branch. He wields enormous power. And there are things that I don't care about his personality and other things like that. He's very charming. He's very funny. Sometimes his humor goes a little too far, but there are things about him that you can like on an individual level. There's vices that he has that you can wish that he certainly did not have. But at the end of the day, there's different policies that I wanted him to go out there and accomplish. There's some things that he pitch that I was like, I don't like that, but what can you do? What can you do? In general, I want the country to be successful. So the things that I think that he wants to do that I feel that will make the country successful, I want him to be able to be successful in implementing those things. If there are things that he wants to accomplish that I'm not too fond of, I hope that he will be persuaded by someone out there to think and do otherwise. Which the cool thing about Trump is that he can read the tea leaves, I guess. There's some things where he's really, really stubborn on and kind of won't move. But in other instances, he can read the tea leaves and kind of adjust what he wants with different news or different Supreme Court decisions and stuff like that. Okay. So he's not he's not an ideologue. So there's a lot of different wiggle room, I guess. So in instances where I disagree, I will criticize. I will maybe talk with someone in the know to kind of see what's going on. To see if there's any kind of persuasion possible, or what small part I can do to maybe affect change. And sometimes all I can do is pray. I mean, I guess I can always talk about stuff, but sometimes I take it to the throne and hope that the situation's going to improve. But why would I just sit and be obsessed with how much I hate him every day? That's, to me, that it's so toxic how so many Democrats are just obsessed with how much they hate him nonstop. I don't even understand people who hate follow me, because I don't understand people like, who even cares what you think? I wouldn't comment that on anyone's page if I didn't care what they thought, because that is like you admitting that you do actually care enough to comment. And when you do comment, people pop up back in your algorithm. So if I see like a TikTok or something and someone says like the video is crazy and I'm like, let me comment. I'm like, no, I don't, because I don't want the notifications from people responding to me. I will just scroll on. So I don't even understand people who just feel compelled to like hate watch my page and comment on different stuff all the time. And if they want to do it, engagement, help the page, monetization, whatever, I guess. But I don't get it. Like I've got better things to do with my time. I feel like people who really hate Trump stalk and are more obsessed with people who are in the industry. They definitely watch this man more than I do. And I don't understand you letting someone have that much power over your peace. I don't understand it. I don't get it. It just couldn't be me. It just couldn't be me. And it's funny because a lot of the things that people believe aren't true, or just are really dumb, like the Save Act stuff. And the women won't be able to get the documents to prove that they had a name change. You don't have your marriage license? By the way, you didn't have to change your name. I think it's neat if you want to change your last name to match your husband. But just have your marriage license to prove that is a thing. Because you do want people to prove who they are. Because imagine if someone could, with the same name, try to prove that they were you, or maybe they just claimed to have your name and they didn't have all the documents together, but they still got to vote with your name. Like, wouldn't you be ticked off about that? So is it just unreasonable that we just try to check and verify that people are who they say they are? I have talked entirely too long about this particular topic, but I guess it spawned off into different things. I'll just say shortly about the Candace Owens thing. Candace Owens is starting her docuseries, I guess, on Erika Kirk tomorrow. I've already did a TikTok about it. I just, it's my feelings about her have been very clear that I think she says things for attention and clicks. And you could say, well, why are you talking about her? Because she's not necessarily going away because we're not talking about her. I guess I'm more concerned about the people who I overlap with her audience. And I don't understand your obsession and the need to constantly defend her. People who've said to me, like, okay, even if Candace is wrong about some things, like why can't you just let her be wrong? And one, I think that's a terribly immoral outlook to have. Like, why wouldn't you want people to speak truth and act appropriately, right? I don't understand why people would advocate that I be silent to speak about moral issues, and just allow themselves to be lied to. I don't understand that. But I want people to understand that Erika and her children and the people at Turning Point are real human beings. They're not just characters on a soap opera, that you just watch with a bucket of popcorn to see their lives implode. They're real people. And like they're accusing, of course, her having something to do with Charlie's assassination, but also that she's a groomer. And Candace Owens, who did softball interviews with Andrew Tate, Pimp Andrew Tate, tried to pretend like the horrific things that he said and admitted to doing while running his cam girl business was just so long ago. She's like, oh, that was 10 years ago, which it wasn't 10 years ago. And it, just because they did something 10 years ago doesn't mean that they have changed, which, you know, and she didn't accurately cover the allegations as far as his different criminal offenses and crimes and accusations. And she's even gone as far as to try to discredit one of his accusers, who's a minor, in an instance where someone attacked her. And so she tried to make it seem like, oh, well, she's accusing other people. And she blotted out the name, like bleeped out the name of the man who had sexually assaulted her and not the name of the actual minor victim. So Candace caring about groomers and people who have sexually assaulted and done sexual immoral acts while palling around and propping up Andrew Tate, which what her behavior with Andrew Tate was one of the reasons why Daily Wire felt like she was hurting their brand and reputation and why they wanted to get rid of her. And that is correct, that she was hurting their brand, and they really should have spoke up about different stuff earlier. And I mentioned on a TikTok, because I talked about this last night, but I hope that something that people can take away about what happened to Charlie Kirk is to basically settle your grievances while you are still walking on this earth. And Candace was apparently going around to different people talking about how much she hated Charlie. And I don't know how much Charlie knew that or heard that. I'm sure if that's the case, then he probably would have heard something, but he didn't go after Candace. Even when people would say stuff like, you know, Candace is saying all this crazy anti-Semitic stuff, and they will say some of the stuff, he would respond like, it's Jew hatred is brain rot. But he wouldn't, like, you know, really try to do any kind of Candace takedown and stuff. And that was with respect to their old friendship or whatever. I don't know if it's just respect to their old friendship. I mean, Charlie seems like someone who, if he's got, like, he doesn't mind controversy, but some people don't believe in attacking people from their own side, and fracturing the group and so on. But he's no longer here. He can't stand up for his family, and they are being attacked. His organization that he built is being attacked. And, you know, it's not like Candace Owens attacking Erika Kirk, which she has been doing for a long time, but now it's just more in your face. It's not like she wasn't attacking other people. It's not like she wasn't spreading other kind of propaganda and lies and so on. Like the Bridget Macron thing, for example. And people, maybe some watched it and believed the kind of stuff that was in it. But if you look at the lawsuit, like at first she was pretending like them not responding was evidence of Brigitte being a man. But the reality is they sent them a lot of information and evidence, but Candace just didn't want to accept it. So she continued on, which strengthened their lawsuit against her, because it's with malice, it can just also be, because people are like, oh, you have to prove that she knew it was a lie. Well, you can prove that she had a reckless regard for the truth. That also factors into malice. So, but people didn't want to just say, hey, Candace, that's like nutty. Like, why are you doing that? Or how she came after Andrew Clavin went after he came after her, but how she misrepresented his critique about her. And she just had a lot of bad content when she was even at the Daily Wire still. And then after she had left, that was just really egregious, and some stuff that people could have spoken out against. But especially since Charlie died, or Charlie was murdered, assassinated, people could have spoken up for Seth Dillon, for example, or Josh Hammer, for example. You know, it didn't need to get to the point of her blatantly doing the stuff to Erika. People could have spoken up sooner about the crazed stuff that she was saying. So some people, I guess, is better late than never. And some people are still silent. People are giving Megyn Kelly a hard time for still not saying anything about Candace Owens. Tucker Carlson, of course, inflamed the crazy stuff and said that the Egyptian plane stuff was true, which it wasn't. So I don't appreciate everybody who helped to build this circus. But I have tried to explain to people, again, because I do have overlap with people who do like Candace, and there are people in my life who I know, like in real life outside of like the internet stuff, who I've had debates about as far as Candace Owens. And a lot of people don't want to defend her lies and the different stuff that she said on an individual level. I don't understand that, but I at least was trying to expose it, you know. So I think some of the things that people said about Erika and how they've attacked her after having her husband assassinated, and then her mom is also really sick as well, is just among some of the most evil things that I've seen. Especially as someone who's lost someone close to them very suddenly, and still what I experienced with my mom dying is nowhere near what she experienced with Charlie dying. I mean, very few people know what it's like to be Erika Kirk. People with the dumbest complaints, like, oh, she's in a sparkly pantsuit, oh, sequin, oh my gosh, and there's fireworks. Charlie loved fireworks. They do them all the time at Turning Point USA events. It was really important to my family that we displayed my mom's shoes because she loves shoes. It's unusual for funerals, but my mom loves shoes. So it was for her. And my sister was in like glittery kind of stuff because that's what she likes to wear. And my mom liked, she could maybe dress down with some stuff, but she'd have like some really beautiful shoes or something. My mom dressed really well. So it just is insane to me that because she's in like a glittery or sequin kind of pantsuit that people would be like, aha, it's evidence that she helped kill Charlie. Just the dumbest dots to try to connect. So I think all this is really gross and disgusting. I'm glad that there's plenty of people talking out about it. Not enough people talking about it, but I'm more concerned about the people who watch it and are okay with it. And I ask you guys why. State of the Union coming up tonight. Ro Khanna is bringing a co-conspirator of Jeffrey Epstein, who was paid to get young girls, I guess, to sit and be the victim, so they can condemn Trump and demand more being done. He says it's all done for justice. I don't buy it. So he's being called out a lot today. The U.S. men's hockey team is going to go. The girls aren't going. I'm fine with them not going, by the way. I know a lot of people are really upset by it, but if they don't want to, it's whatever. If they don't want to, that's fine. A lot of people will jump at any kind of chance to go to the White House or the Congress or whatever when they're a guest of the president. It is a neat thing, but you might not like the president. That's, if you don't want to go, it's whatever. That's someone's seat. Who wants to go could go there and be there and enjoy. So if you're not going to appreciate it, that's fine. It's fine. I'm not upset by it. I don't care. It's whatever. And maybe it's because they do have other obligations and they don't want to squeeze it in. It might not just be we hate him, we don't want to go to the State of the Union, which are long, by the way. Trump talks for a long time. So you just had this like long weekend, long, Olympics event. Do you want to go hear Trump talk for like 2 hours? Maybe you don't. Maybe you don't. I'm not pressed about it. Anyway, thank you guys for joining me today. Please go to blacktnews.com, check out different content, website, articles, videos, etc. If you like what I do, please consider leaving a donation on the website because it does cost a stream. Run my side on the good stuff so you guys get support. I very much do appreciate it and appreciate you guys. You guys can check out different merch that I have on the website as well, like different t-shirts, like I'm not the victim you're looking for. That's a cool one. And I got the You Are Not That Special shirt and mug as well. So you guys can check out that stuff. And you guys can also check out some different books and stuff that I have available as well. I do write. There's a link in the description that'll take you to my book website where you guys can check out Bigger, which is about a baby dinosaur who dreams of being bigger. God bless you guys, and I will see you on tomorrow.